Cool, man. Yeah, well, thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So this is called the Minnesota Music Note. Like I said, I started it, I don't know, 4 months ago or something like that. And it's just a really great way to have, kind of deeper dive conversations with people that I've met out in the community. And it's really great to have you here. But I know who you are. We've met together, but maybe the audience doesn't. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, my name's Tim Butler. I've been a Minnesota guy most of my life. Spent some time in Wisconsin, but mostly Minnesota. Been playing music for my whole life, starting out as early as I can remember. Dad bought me a guitar when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. Just kind of took off from there.
That's cool. So do your parents kind of see the music vein already running through you?
Yeah,
they knew they had to set you up with something?
They did, I'm sure, before I ever knew that there was something there. I mean, my mom has a picture somewhere of me playing a little toy piano when I'm literally like 1 year old, 2 years old, something like that. So
nice.
There was something about the sound that got me early.
Any chance we can find that photo and put it in the podcast?
I can't think if I think I might have seen it once years ago, but if she has it, she's got it tucked away somewhere. I'll have to ask her about it.
Okay. Yeah. Nice to have. It's always great to see those old, the young versions of the people that we know now.
Exactly.
So cool. Were your parents into music? You think that's
not really?
Okay.
No, really. No one else in my family is very musical or artistic, really. So, yeah, I don't know where it really came from initially.
So you and I talked one time out at one of the jams, and you have a day job, like many of us musicians out there, right? And your day job, is not one of those creative ones, right? Tell me a little about what you do in the other part of your life.
Well, I've had various day jobs through the years. I've never really found anything that really called out to me as something that I wanted to pursue, other than the music. So the last day job I had actually just ended last year. So I decided 20 years of sitting at a desk auditing mortgage files was about as much as I could handle. So
that's right, mortgage auditor. Yeah,
auditor.
I forgot exactly what it was called, but yeah.
It was a good job.
Oh, really? So you kind of packed that. I think it must have been over a year ago that we talked about it.
Yeah,
because you were still doing it at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it was maybe one of the Halloween jams a couple of years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Which are
probably
always the most extravagant and fun.
Oh, those are fun.
Enjoy the heck out of those. So
yeah.
Nice. So to take me back to some like early influences, obviously you got the guitar, but what were you listening to that you wanted to play when you first picked up that guitar?
The first thing I remember listening to and identifying with was probably the Monkees, the TV show, and even when I was young, that had already passed, being in the early 60s. I was born in the mid 60s. So I was born right around the same time the Monkees, I suppose, were coming out. But yeah, that TV show just captivated me. I just remembered staying up late at night with friends, overnight type things. And, let's try to stay up and watch the Monkees at 2 a.m. or whatever it was. And
did they come on that late?
They did for a while, yeah.
Wow.
Back when I first started to get into them. And then, of course, that led to the Beatles, which I think there was a Monkee show where they thanked the Beatles at the end of the show. And that was my first introduction to that. I was like, I had no idea that this was actually a parody of something that had come previously, So, and then once I discovered the Beatles, it was just opened up, a whole new world to what is out there.
So funny conversation I had this weekend, actually with John Stunner on his podcast. He had me as a guest, but he said something that I never knew. And you can tell me whether or not this is part of your upbringing as well. You're either an Elvis fan or a Beatles fan. But many people are not both.
Right.
Like in his family, he actually has aunts that like don't get along because of their.
Okay.
Is that something that you experienced?
Well, my mom was a big Elvis fan. And so, of course, I couldn't be an Elvis fan because you can't do what your parents, you can't like what your parents like. So, no, I was never really a big Elvis fan. My interests came after that, starting with the Beatles. So,
Cool.
I mean, you learn about him after the fact, and why he was popular and why people, why he is what he is, but it never really interested me that much.
I'm sure today you can play a couple of Elvis tunes, though.
Yeah, actually I do. In my solo acoustic set, I do play an Elvis song. Yeah.
Nice. Which one?
What the heck was it? Don't Be Cruel.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't Be Cruel.
Nice. Awesome. So that's great. So Monkees and then the Beatles, then kind of what's next on the list? Like where was, take me down that path of all the music that kind of inspired you and got you where you are today.
Yeah, well, that was my introduction to it. But basically, towards the end of the 70s and early 80s, when most of us become young teenagers, that's when we sort of discover what we really like and what we want to listen to. So that was the era that really brought me into my interest in music. So, starting out with bands like Van Halen, Kiss, Ozzy, Rush. Those are the bands that really sort of got me going through the early 80s and really started to get me interested more in playing guitar. So that's really where my guitar interest started also, to really get serious, was listening to those bands.
Cool. So like what, can you think of a song or two that really just like, yeah, because same thing. Like I was a teenager once and there's some songs that just caught me at some point when I was growing up.
79, Dire Straits, their first breakthrough single was Sultans of Swing.
Huh.
And that was, I would credit that song as teaching me probably more than anything ever did on how to play guitar. And even though my style now really isn't, I mean, I'm not much of a finger picker, which Mark Knopfler is.
Yeah.
But just the guitar that runs through that song, that's one of the first things I remember actually sitting down and trying to learn, note for note.
And I'm not a guitar player, but I understand that that's not an easy song to just pick up.
No, it's probably not. It's unique. His style is unique.
Yeah.
But there was something about the sound of that guitar and the way he played it and the way it just weaves itself through that song. I mean, that song is based around his guitar playing, really. I mean, there's a nice story that goes along with it, but for me, it was always the guitar. That was the main focal point.
Yeah, for sure. So what's another one? Take me down.
Oh, well, Van Halen obviously came out right around that same time, 78, 79. And once they broke, and Edward Van Halen was sort of the guitar player that everyone aspired to sound like. And, he influenced a whole generation of players, including me. Once I heard that stuff, that's what I wanted to do.
So I've heard the stories about like in that era that a lot of the bands, Van Halen being one of them, would put these huge stacks of guitar amps that weren't even their real amps. They would hide their amps,
Kiss used to do that too.
They don't want anybody to see what they're actually using to be able to mimic or pull their sound, because sound was such a big deal.
Well, it's all part of the show, the visual aspect of it too. I mean, you want to present yourself as sort of larger than life. And,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you do any Van Halen jump kicks while you're on the stage?
No, I'm not that really athletic, but I do like that whole image, that whole vibe that came from that era.
Nice. So what are some other, after Van Halen, what are some other bands that kind of took you through that period?
Oh, I got into Rush at that time.
What's your favorite Rush track, if you had to pick one, which I know is hard to do?
The two Rush songs I always sort of go back to are Free Will, which came out in 1980, I believe, on Permanent Waves.
Okay.
And then, let's see, Subdivisions. That was a couple of albums later. That was around 81 or 82. And then just the whole 2112 album. That was another one of those albums that I just had to learn everything on the album, and that's just sort of how I learned to play guitars, by albums like that and the Dire Straits that I had mentioned, and just picking apart those guitar parts. That's where I learned, what I do.
So what was you got a guitar at 8 or 9 years old,
Hmm.
and then you found a time in your life where you got real serious about it, kind of like mid-teens, I think is what
Hmm.
you're saying. So what was your change in work ethic like, or, guitar work ethic when you were just kind of strumming around, goofing off maybe, and then when you said, okay, I really want to get serious about this, like how many hours a day or hours a week or whatever were you spending?
When I was about 12 years old, my father passed away in a
Mm,
car accident. And that's a traumatic experience for anyone to go through,
for sure.
especially a 12-year-old kid. And for me, the guitar, that's just where I put all my focus and all my energy,
Mm,
just as an escape,
mm,
just as a coping kind of mechanism. Um, so that I became very withdrawn and introverted. I'm still an introverted person. I mean, that's just part of my personality. But at that time in my life, I really sort of closed off
mm.
and had my guitar, and my guitar was where I went. That was my focus. So there were several years in my early teens, from age 12 to 14 or so, when that's just all I did.
Mm,
I just sat in my bedroom and played guitar and learned what I could.
mm. Cool. And then, when you kind of got out of that period of your life and kind of moved into, like, when did you become, I would say, a gigging musician? Tell me about like the early band days or the
Hmm.
early collaboration days with other folks.
Yeah, that came immediately after that. At
Okay.
14, 15 years old, I started to meet other students and friends at the school I was going to in Stillwater.
Mm.
Funny enough, since that's where I spend a lot of my time jamming now is in
Right.
Stillwater. But that what was the question?
Just like when did you kind of transition, or tell me about some stories of you transitioning from being,
Yeah,
playing on your own and kind of starting to form together with bands or,
yeah, just through friends at school. We would start to get together and jam and form bands. And, like I said, that started around age 14 or 15. And I'm still friends with a lot of those people that I became friends with at that time.
that's cool.
And actually, through most of my life, my friends have always been other musicians.
Music
That's
related.
just who I relate to. And yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Do you remember your first band name?
Oh, I think my first band was actually a band called Continental Kids. And I don't know where we came up with that name, but this was even before I was sort of getting into guitar. This would have been, I actually started playing organ and,
Is that right?
and keyboards.
Okay.
And and this was just a takeoff on that. Just two of my friends that also like to sing um, would get together, and I would sit down and just write these little chord progressions and melodies on a keyboard,
Hmm.
write an organ, and we'd come up with songs um, just through that process. So that's where that kind of started. And then it just developed from there to once I got more into guitar, the direction I took from there went more towards the rock and roll
Mm.
and the stuff that I was listening to. But before that, yeah, it was actually a keyboard type thing. And just with a couple of friends, we would sit and figure out, songs. We'd write our own songs that were, simple, goofy little things,
Right.
but the creative spark was there.
So did you write music a lot during that period? Did you stay in like writing bands, or what kind of like when did you make a transition maybe a little bit more towards doing covers and that sort of thing? And
The writing part of it was always a part of it. And it wasn't even really something I thought about. It was just something that happened very organically,
mm,
just sitting and playing the guitar, you know, you tend to come up with things on your own and
sure.
that might sound like something else, but maybe it's a little bit different, a variation on it.
Right.
And so that all started right away, just as you learn to play your instrument, I think you start to create original types music.
Yeah.
So yeah, that started early, and that just sort of continued. And these days, not so much. I mean, I went through a period where I was writing a lot of instrumental music for TV and film productions,
Is that right? That's cool.
and but that's where it all led to, and eventually where I landed as far as, a creative writer. But there have been bands too that have had an original aspect to it. I played with a band called Life Tragic for 10 or 15 years, and we recorded a couple of albums. Um, and there have been others, but mainly that one. And then the covers that all started early on as well. In junior and senior high school, like I said, jamming with my buddies. We'd learn Rush and Van Halen, and we'd put on little shows in the neighborhood, or we did a high school battle of the bands, back in my high school days. And
this was in Stillwater, or high school in Stillwater?
This was in Stillwater, yeah.
Nice, awesome, man. So what's your kind of routine now? Like how often do you practice now, or is your songbook so deep that you don't really need to practice that often, or kind of what do you do in prep for everything that you do?
Well, Ziggy's All Stars has sort of lit a little bit of a fire for me as far as learning new songs, because we have such a vast catalog that we choose from to play for the All Stars Jam that every week I'm having to go over songs I might have learned previously but haven't played in several months.
Right. Yeah.
So that's been good for me to sort of get my chops back up and keep on learning cover tunes and learning different guitar solos and song parts. So that's been a big part of that. That's one of the reasons I really enjoy doing that jam, is it keeps me busy learning and practicing when otherwise I might not be. Like my band Bigley is sort of the main cover band I play with. And we'll throw in a new song every once in a while, but generally the set lists we've been doing for close to 10 years. So there's really not a need to rehearse that stuff.
Sure.
Once you know it and you're playing it several times a month with the band, it's where it needs to be. So the jam is good for that, for keeping me on my toes and having to relearn stuff. But I play every day, whether I've got something I have to learn or not. That's just it's always been a part of my routine. Is I've got enough walls in my house with guitars hanging from them that I can walk from one room to the next and see something I like and grab it off the wall and be inspired to play something.
That's cool. So how many guitars do you own?
I've got 30-something guitars.
30-something
total, yeah. But that includes things like a mandolin, a ukulele,
okay,
stuff like that. So it's not just all 6-string guitars. I've got some basses in there.
I was gonna say, I've got a couple basses as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
But
so
yeah,
tell me a little bit about your individual show, like the thing that you do as Tim Butler, your solo show.
Yeah, well, I call that Heartland Acoustic Rock. And basically, I'm playing songs from the 70s and 80s, stuff that I grew up on.
Okay.
But it's more of a singer-songwriter, classic rock kind of vibe, which I've always loved that type of music. So being able to do it all on my own is something that it makes me happy.
So how is the show built? Are you using like a looping pedal, or is it just you and a guitar? Right? How does it all come together?
It is just me and a guitar. I do have a looping pedal that I use on a couple of different songs. I don't base my whole show off of the looping aspect of it.
Sure.
Some friends of mine, like Tony Williams, is really good at that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And but it's just a small part of what I do. And I've got some backing tracks that I've recorded for myself. Usually it's just a little bit of a bass guitar and some percussion.
Okay.
Just to fill out the sound. So it's still the guitar you're hearing is me playing live, and the vocal is always live.
Right.
But sometimes just to fill that out, you'll hear a little bass and a little percussion. But otherwise, it's just based on my acoustic guitar and my vocal.
Very cool. All right, so take me back to kind of a funny story or something that's happened on your journey here. You're walking into some bar or some venue and something crazy happens.
Well, I had to drive to Brainerd for a show once, and from the Twin Cities, that's like what, a 2 or 3 hour drive.
Yeah.
And literally, as I drove into the city of Brainerd, got a message from one of the other guys that, oh, there's a mistake. We're not even scheduled to play this weekend. So we all turned around and went back home. So that not so funny, but that's one of the
But a pain in the butt.
one of the
for
weird
sure.
things that have happened.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I'm sure there have been many. Maybe something will come to me as we keep talking. But
Well, take me to a glorious place then. Like when have you walked in? You maybe with Bigley, maybe your solo show. You're in the the zombie band, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Or just take me to something like when you walked out there and you're like, wow, this is pretty impressive.
about 10 years ago, Life Tragic had an opportunity to play at Rockfest over in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, they were inviting the local bands to actually play a set on the main stage with the headlining bands.
Mm-hmm.
And so we actually had an opportunity to do that one year where we played our 1 hour set. I think we were the first band of that day. But that was quite an impressive, or left quite an impression on me. Just the whole aspect of, driving up behind this whole main stage setup, and setting up our stuff with, bands like Godsmack are already set up on the stage, and whatever other headlining bands there were that day. That was a thrill. That was just a thrill to say, oh, we can kind of say that we're part of this now.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so that's one of my most vivid memories, I think, is just setting up for that show and playing our hour set.
Is it Somerset, Wisconsin that happens?
No, Rockfest is further into Wisconsin.
Okay.
I forget the name of the city that it's part of, but it's way out in the sticks, out in the middle of
the
Wisconsin.
boonies somewhere.
Yeah.
Some farmer turned his yard into a rock fest. So.
I think that might have actually been the location that Stevie Ray Vaughan played his final show before his helicopter crash.
Oh, really?
It might have been at that venue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, what's in the future for you? What are you looking forward to?
Pretty much just more of the same right now. With music right now being my only source of income, I'm looking to, do it as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe there'll be more acoustic kind of projects that maybe as a soloist or a duo type thing. I've done some duo shows with different musicians from the Twin Cities, and, I might do something more with that just to sort of fill in the schedule a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, I keep pretty busy we mentioned Devil's Rejects. That's a Rob Zombie tribute band. We play probably 6 to 10 shows a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we do travel out a little bit too to the surrounding states. So it's not just the Twin City area. But yeah, with that and Bigley and Ziggy's All-Stars, it keeps me pretty busy.
That's cool. So how many nights a week are you playing generally right now? 2 to 3?
It can be anywhere from 2 to sometimes 4 or 5 times a week. But yeah, on average, I'd say probably 2 or 3 times a week. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty busy schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good to have the time for it though.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Be able to walk away from that desk job and
I know.
just kind of open up your schedule to do what you really want to do when you grow up, right?
Right.
Very cool. Well, I'd love to wrap these up actually by asking who should be next. Who do you nominate to be next on this show?
Have you had Tom Moga on yet?
Moga is scheduled.
Yeah, he's an interesting character.
He's scheduled. He might be coming in next week, actually.
Okay, good. Well, I'm going to have to pay attention to that. And yeah, once I look up some of your, current episodes,
yeah,
I'll have to look up for Tom too. But yeah, he's one of the guys we jam with at Ziggy's on Wednesdays, and he plays in several other different bands as well.
I think he just joined another one. He actually just replaced Stunner in gosh, what's it? Hollywood Boulevard.
Hollywood Boulevard. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Moga was one of the first people that I knew when I joined. Not that I actually had met him, but just because the dude was like everywhere. Man, it's that same bass player. It was over there on that show I was at last weekend.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're on the right track though with Ziggy's All Stars. I mean, there's always musicians coming through there that are really good musicians,
Yeah.
and whether or not they're established with music or just beginning,
Yeah.
it's fun to meet different players and singers that really sort of know what's going on and are good at it.
Yeah.
And to sort of encourage that and encourage them to do what they can with it and get out there.
Well, the Jamily has been a big part of everybody's life, since we all, and then there's a couple other jams out there that we go to from time to time as well. It's just wonderful. There's a guy that I had on, Nate Gerard. I'm not sure if you've met him before, but Nate came on and he had just this really wonderful statement of, many times he goes into the jam and somebody's dealing with some deep stuff, something happened in their life, family things, whatever it might be. You get to the jam feeling really bad, talk to Nate about it or whatever. But by the end of the night, everybody's in a wonderful mood, right? And music just has such a great ability to do that, to help us get through some of those tougher times in our life, right?
That's an interesting thing about the jam in Stillwater that John Sonic has put together. It's maybe a little smaller than some of the other jams. I know the Route 47 jam. I've played there several times, and that's a great jam.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably several in Wisconsin, and there's several more in the Twin Cities area.
They're growing actually in popularity now, but yeah.
Well, you stumble across something that works and that people like, and of course it's gonna sort of spread.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the neat thing about the Stillwater Jam, though. I think is what you had mentioned. It's kind of a close knit community, of musicians that they seem to really care about each other, and I'm very proud to be a part of that.
Yeah. I know that, and you can walk off stage completely train wrecking the song and three people are still going to give you a high five and tell you that you did a good job, which is nice.
A lot of times it's all, that's the main accomplishment for that person is to just get out there and do it, because that's the hardest part, whether or not you can, perform and play better or as good as anybody else. That's sort of secondary, at least starting out. The first step is just to do it.
Yep, that's right.
So props to anybody that has never done it and that can get the nerve to get up there and do it. That's what we're congratulating there is, good on them for just doing it.
For sure, yeah. No, it is definitely a very welcoming vibe. Anybody can walk up there regardless of the level of experience and feel like they're at home. Maybe they have to get over those jitters of getting on stage one time and get those high fives, and they realize, oh, these people are cool. So
I still get the jitters at the Ziggy's jams.
Do you?
Every time. Yeah, every time I show up, I'm nervous and a little uptight, and it takes a little while to, a couple of songs in, it all goes away. But
right.
But it's always when I'm first there, there's a hesitancy there.
I would have never known that, Tim.
Well, I guess I'm good at hiding it.
Yeah. Well, now we got it on camera, so everybody knows.
Yeah, right.
All right, so Moga already on the schedule. Who else do you think?
Well, I'm sure you've already gotten a lot of the major ones that people would know or recognize. John Sonic, he's probably been
John hasn't been on, but John has a reason. He and I have talked about
okay.
some things that are happening and that
Gotcha.
he wants to announce when it's time. So you probably know what those things are, but I'm not going to say it yet either. So
okay, I think I might have an inkling, but maybe not.
So John would be a great one when he gets a chance to come over. It doesn't only have to be from that jam either. I mean,
right.
I've pulled in a lot of musicians, and I had a music teacher on earlier who's not really out playing. Great dude. So just showrunners. I've got a couple of sound guys scheduled to come in. So yeah.
Well, any of the guys that I play with in whether it's Devil's Rejects or I've played with several of the guys in a band called Burning Daylight that might
I remember seeing that.
be interested in sitting down with you. Yeah, and I mean,
Cool.
Greg White is their drummer. He's the drummer that I also play with in Devil's Rejects. and
Nice.
I also played with him in Life Tragic, so we go back 15, 20 years.
Yeah, it'd be great to get the whole Devil's Rejects band in here, including yourself.
Oh,
and
that'd
just
be a
do
blast.
this again, and then we can, spitball and have some fun together.
That would be a
So,
lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So that the lead singer is just like, he just really does it, man. He gets
Yeah.
out there on the dance floor doing the dance moves and everything. He's just really charismatic and definitely a good guy for the front of that band.
Yes,
So,
that's Josh Sutton. He puts everything into it.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for coming.
Well, thank you. I
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
it. No,
Yeah.
thanks very much.
Hopefully you had a good time.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey there, Minnesota music family. If I haven't personally reached out to you yet, consider this your 100% official invitation to join me on the Minnesota Music Note. I'm Will McLeod, co-founder of the podcast crew here in beautiful Robbinsdale, host of the show, and the guy behind the kit for the band Hits and the Misses. I started this podcast because I want to get to know the people who make our scene tick. Whether you're fronting a band, spinning hip-hop, running sound, booking shows, running shows, or teaching the next generation of talent, your story belongs here. We've had everyone from videographers to festival organizers on the mic, and we're just getting started. It doesn't matter if you're playing arenas or just making magic in your basement. If you're part of the Minnesota music community, I want to chat. Slide into my DMs or hit the email below, and let's hang out and talk shop.